Part 43. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Rusiahua. Chapter 421. In this world, there may be very few girls who don't love money, but most of them love money. If you don't love it, you can only say that you haven't spent enough money on it. Li Yuan knew Wang Yuchen very well. She was 100% a money-worshipping green tea. And the greener the tea, the smarter it is, and they will regard their first time as very important, because for them, it can be sold at a good price. The price is very different if it is the first time or not. Li Yuan guessed that the reason why Wang Yuchen had such a big reaction was probably because he did not see enough benefits, or in other words, he was not satisfied enough with Suji. Being with Suji now is just the second choice after weighing the pros and cons. As the saying goes, you have to ride a donkey first to find a horse. Suji's family situation is not good, otherwise he would not have saved thousands of private money in high school. Having this kind of spare boyfriend can definitely provide a certain amount of economic value to meet the expenses of college. Suji answered dubiously, "Okay, brother Yuan, let me try. If it doesn't work, can you ask your sister-in-law to put in a good word for me? They are best friends, and Yuchen should listen to her." Li Yuan nodded, "Okay, you try it first and see if you can coax her well. You must remember to be sweet in your mouth, show more of your wealth, and draw more big cakes. Maybe this is what she will do." "Well, brother Yuan, I'm going to try it now." Suji hung up the phone hesitantly, and came to the hotel bed uneasily, looking at Wang Yuchen who was holding his head and hiding in the corner, sobbing non-stop. With a common voice, he knelt down in front of Wang Yuchen and apologized sincerely. "Yuchen, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I drank too much last night and was so in love that I couldn't help myself. You know how much I love you. I've been chasing you since my second year in high school. I went to the same university as you until now. Don't worry, I swear, I will love you forever. If I am sorry for you, I will strike with thunder the next day." Su's hiking apologized sincerely, but Wang Yuchen ignored it at all and continued to hold her head and cry. Suji couldn't help but feel a little frustrated when he knelt down to apologize, but it was still useless. After thinking about it, he decided to do as Li Yuan said. He stood up, picked up the broken cell phone that Wang Yuchen had smashed in anger, came to Wang Yuchen, and spoke anxiously. "Yuchen, I'm sorry to let you break a mobile phone. However, the old one will not go away, and the new one will not come. Your mobile phone has been used for 2 years and it can be replaced. I heard that there is a fruit on the market now. The mobile phone iPhone 3G is very smart and beautiful, with a touch screen. If you like it, I will give it to you." After Suji finished speaking, he waited nervously for Wang Yuchen's response. I saw Wang Yuchen, who had been crying. Suddenly, his crying became much weaker. He turned around for a rare moment, looked at Suji with red eyes, and stared at Suji coldly. "What new phone are you talking about?" Seeing that Wang Yuchen finally paid attention to him, Suji was overjoyed and quickly explained. "It's a mobile phone from a beautiful country called Fruit Company. I heard it's an epoch-making smartphone. Your phone is broken, so just buy a new one." Wang Yuchen glanced at Suji. She had heard about the reputation of this phone and had seen it before. A very rich female classmate in the university owned such a phone. "I heard it was very expensive." Wang Yuchen snorted coldly, "Do you have money to buy it for me?" Suji quickly replied, "I have money, a lot of money. I made some money with brother Yuan recently. Yuchen, as long as you don't be angry with me, I will buy you whatever you want." Wang Yuchen listened to Suji follow Li Yuan's tremor and make money together. His heart suddenly moved, and his heartbeat began to accelerate. She had no doubt about Li Yuan's ability to make money. Before he was 19 years old, Li Yuan started a company, bought a luxury house, and drove a sports car, which completely exceeded all her imagination. In fact, she was very envious of Bai Wuxi in her heart. Unfortunately, Li Yuan ignored her at all. After meeting Li Yuan's other girlfriends, she also knew that she had no chance. Now she suddenly heard that Su Ji and Li Yuan had made money together, and her heart suddenly trembled. Wang Yuchen suppressed the trembling in her heart and pretended to ask calmly. "You don't know how to write novels, how much money can you make by following Li Yuan?" Su Ji hesitated for a moment, and when he was considering whether to say something, he heard Wang Yuchen's cold voice. "Forget it if you don't want to say it, I don't want to know either." Su Ji gritted his teeth and said to himself, "Brother Yuan, I'm sorry," before explaining. "Yuchen, I learned how to trade stocks with Brother Yuan some time ago and made some money." Stock trading, Wang Yuchen was startled. She had naturally heard of stock trading, but she had never been exposed to it. She only heard that there was a financial crisis and the stock market was very poor. "Huh, the stock market is very bad now. How much money can you make? Is it enough to pay for my mobile phone?" When Su Ji saw Wang Yuchen taking the initiative to ask, he felt happy and quickly waved his hand, pretending to be cool. "Oh, I don't earn much, probably around 100,000, which should be enough to buy you a mobile phone." 100,000, Wang Yuchen's voice was obviously surprised. This figure is already 4 years of tuition plus living expenses for many college students. Although she now sees Bai Wuxi driving luxury cars, living in luxury houses, and wearing famous brands every day, she actually doesn't even have 1,000 yuan in her bank card. Her family is just an ordinary working-class family. Although she found it hard to believe that Su Ji had earned 100,000 in a short period of time, she believed it when she thought that she was with Li Yuan. For Li Yuan, no matter how magical things happened, they all seemed ordinary. Wang Yuchen stared at Su Ji's worried eyes, thinking that she had lost her virginity to him last night. Her mind suddenly became alive. "Although I can't find a boyfriend like Li Yuan, with the relationship between Su Ji and Li Yuan, maybe I can make a lot of money in the future." Wang Yuchen stared at Su Ji deeply and resentfully. Su Ji's scalp was numb from being stared at, and he felt even more uneasy and anxious. If this didn't work, he didn't know what to do. As soon as he gritted his teeth, he made up his mind and continued to increase his chips as Li Yuan said. "Yuchen, you know my love for you. As long as you can forgive me, I am willing to do anything for you." Wang Yuchen felt happy in her heart, but pretended to be resentful on the surface. "Are you really willing to do everything for me?" Su Ji nodded quickly, "Yes. Of course I do." Wang Yuchen stared straight at Su Ji and said calmly, "You said this. Then transfer all the money to me for safekeeping, and I will believe you." Su Ji was stunned and asked subconsciously, "I will transfer it to you for safekeeping." Wang Yuchen immediately sneered and turned away. "Oh, forget it if you don't want to, and you said you would do anything for me, you are a liar." Being so excited by Wang Yuchen, Su Ji immediately became enthusiastic and quickly agreed to the unequal treaty proposed by Wang Yuchen. "Yuchen, believe me, I am willing. My money is your money, and it should be left to you for safekeeping." Hearing Su Ji's promise, Wang Yuchen raised her head proudly, a rare smile appeared on her face, and she hummed softly. Su Ji asked, "Yuchen, can I transfer it to you now?" Wang Yuchen still said a faint hum. There are naturally computers in 5-star luxury hotels. Su Ji logged into online banking without saying a word, asked for Wang Yuchen's bank card, and transferred 100,000 yuan directly to it. "Yuchen, look, my bank card has a total of 100,800, so I transferred 100,000 to you. Can you keep 8,000 for yourself?" Wang Yuchen looked at the transfer records on the computer. The excitement in his heart had already surged through his body, but he still pretended to be calm and spoke. "Well, I won't spend it arbitrarily. I'll save it for you to buy a house in Shanghai later. Chapter 244 Is this nap serious? In the stormy weather with lightning and thunder, like an angry woman, she poured out her anger wantonly, immersing the entire demonic city in darkness. Star River Bay. On the third floor of the villa, in the private theater, the scene of the Titanic's toppling was being played on the wide screen. The two girls, Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu, unknowingly had crystal tears rolling in their beautiful eyes as the plot of the movie progressed, and they were almost moved to tears. At some point, the two girls, who were still a certain distance away from each other, slowly moved closer to each other due to their nervousness, almost touching each other. At this time, the two beautiful and effervescent young girls seemed to have completely forgotten the identities of each other's love rivals. They were like a pair of best friends, seriously watching this love movie. When everything came to an end and the Titanic ship sank completely into the ocean, Bai Wuxi murmured to himself with blurred eyes. It's so tragic. I feel so uncomfortable. Zhong Tingyu's eyes were also shining brightly. She glanced at Bai Wuxi sadly and replied with empathy. Sigh, this kind of tragic love movie is not suitable for me to watch. Comedy movies are more suitable for me. Bai Wuxi listened to Zhong Tingyu's emotion and nodded in sympathy. The beauty of love will be remembered by people, but when seeing tragic and touching love, it will bring greater trauma to the soul. Bai Wuxi murmured, after watching this movie, I suddenly wanted to go on a cruise ship, to look at the stars and the sea, and to see the dim light of the sunset. Bai Wuxi wiped her tears, blinked her clear eyes, and asked softly, Tingyu, have you ever been on a cruise ship? Zhong Tingyu shook her head and looked deeply at Bai Wuxi. Looking at the sentimental girl in front of me, I suddenly had an idea in my heart that I wanted to talk to her. She didn't hate Bai Wuxi at all. Sometimes, she even felt that she was pitiful. The other party should have enjoyed all the love from that philandering man, but by some strange combination of circumstances, he could only share a quarter of it, or even less than a quarter. Sometimes, she was particularly envious of the other person. No matter what, the other person is the most important person in Li Yuan's heart, the person he will never forget, even if there is a dream that he doesn't know is true or false. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 422. When Zhong Tingyu looked at Bai Wuxi was also looking at Zhong Tingyu. Looking at this roommate who had been living in the same room for more than 2 months, Bai Wuxi suddenly had a lot to say in his heart, but he didn't know where to start. Or the ridiculous scene last night. The two of them knew each other well, but no one had the nerve to point it out. After experiencing that incident, the gap between the two people suddenly disappeared a lot. Bai Wuxi stood up with complicated thoughts. We've finished watching the movie, let's go see what Li Yuan is doing. Zhong Tingyu nodded, also stood up and turned off all the equipment. Seeing Zhong Tingyu skillfully closing the facility, Bai Wuxi paused in his steps. He had many questions in his heart and couldn't help but ask. Tingyu, you have been here before, right? Zhong Tingyu hesitated slightly, but nodded and admitted. Li Yuan and I looked at this villa together, and he and I also chose the decoration inside. Including this set of equipment in the house, it is also the style I selected. Every word Zhong Tingyu said was like a thorn, deeply piercing Bai Wuxi's soft heart. Bai Wuxi stared at Zhong Tingyu blankly. She didn't know what she thought of. Suddenly, she couldn't control her tears at all. Every teardrop escaped mischievously. Bai Wuxi felt very sad. It was clear that her relationship with Li Yuan had reached that level, and she was willing to do many things for him that she was unwilling to do. But why, Li Yuan still has so many things that he is hiding from himself. First from Zhe before, to the current villa, I was always the last one to know. Why do you do this to me? Bai Wuxi muttered to himself with tears in his eyes. When Zhong Tingyu saw this scene, she sighed, walked to Bai Wuxi, stretched out her hand, and wiped her tears. Wuxi, did he tell you that story? Bai Wuxi felt Zhong Tingyu's fingertips brushing across her cheek. Listening to her words, the words Li Yuan said that night at the school's Yuanyang slope instantly came to mind. Are you telling that story from a previous life? Zhong Tingyu nodded, yeah. Wei 11, do you believe what he said? Bai Wuxi shook his head and nodded again, looking very confused and mumbling to himself. I don't know, I obviously don't believe it in my heart, but after Li Yuan confessed to me after the college entrance examination and was rejected, he really seemed to be a different person, completely different from before. Zhong Tingyu smoothed her hair and said meaningfully, if what he said is true, then everything will be understandable, because you will always be the person he likes the most in his heart, but you are born out of love just hate. After hearing this, Bai Wuxi was speechless and did not answer. All the past events emerged in her mind. Sometimes, the causes sown in advance bear the fruits today. If what Li Yuan said was true, he would probably really hate himself to death, so he would not tell himself everything about him. Bai Wuxi looked deeply at Zhong Tingyu and walked away without saying a word. In the study, Li Yuan heard the footsteps of Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu, stretched and said hello with a smile. Two beauties, how do you like it? Did you cry while watching it? Bai Wuxi's eyes were misty as she listened to Li Yuan's joke. Zhong Tingyu smiled and joked, Senior, Wei 11 is crying when I see her. Why don't you come over and comfort her? Did you really cry? Li Yuan came to the two of them in surprise. Looking at Bai Wuxi with blurred eyes, he couldn't help but reached out to wipe her tears, touched her head and made a joke. Xiao Bai, is the movie so touching? I actually cried while watching it, like a little cat. Bai Wuxi was feeling sad. Hearing Li Yuan's joke, he stared wide-eyed and suddenly grabbed Li Yuan's arm and bit him hard on the wrist. It hurts, Li Yuan grimaced in pain and took a breath of cold air. Bai Wuxi bit down very hard. Xiao Bai, let go, why are you biting me? After Bai Wuxi vented his resentment fiercely, he let go of Li Yuan's arm. He looked at the clear row of tooth marks on Li Yuan's arm, and there was even a trace of blood, and then he let go. Humph, who asked you to bully me like this? Li Yuan rubbed his wrist, his eyes full of doubts. He was about to reprimand, but when he saw Bai Wuxi staring at him with tearful eyes, he muttered speechlessly. Xiao Bai, when did I bully you again? Bai Wuxi snorted, you've been bullying me all this time. Li Yuan was speechless, yes, you are justified in crying. You said I bullied you, so I bullied you. Bai Wuxi shouted with blurry eyes, you stinky Li Yuan, you bullied me. You bullied me last night. You did it on purpose. You walked into the wrong room on purpose. Listening to Bai Wuxi trying to tell what happened last night, Li Yuan awkwardly stretched out his hand to block Bai Wuxi's mouth, coughed, and began to change the topic. Ahem, it's noon. What do you want to eat? I'll do it. Zhong Tingyu glared at Li Yuan with a strange expression. She had long figured out that what happened last night must have been intentional by Li Yuan. However, this matter is too ridiculous. The three people now know it very well, and she doesn't want to expose it. It would be too embarrassing. Senior, can you still cook? Li Yuan nodded proudly, that's necessary. If you don't believe me, just ask Xiao Bai. When he was in high school, he made a love bento for Bai Wuxi. He believed the perverse saying to capture a woman's heart you must capture her stomach, and practiced cooking skills for a period of time. Although he is not as good as a restaurant chef, he can still cook. Li Yuan looked at Bai Wuxi and joked, right, Xiao Bai? You have the most say. Bai Wuxi listened to Li Yuan's words, and her mind couldn't help but emerge in the past. At that time, Li Yuan really had her in his eyes and the world, and was willing to do anything for her. But she lost such a man who once loved her so much. Bai Weixi's voice was a little choked, and she nodded silently, and answered Zhong Tingyu. Well, his cooking is really delicious. Zhong Tingyu knew that Li Yuan had cooked for Bai Weixi before, and she felt a little sour in her heart, and the feeling of envy from the bottom of her heart became stronger. She looked at Li Yuan deeply and snorted, "Senior, since even Wei 11 praised your cooking, I'll give you a chance to show yourself at noon." "Okay, two beauties, just wait." Li Yuan smiled and prepared to show off his cooking skills. He actually likes cooking. Just like when he was with Xia's Haijin, he really liked cooking with this treasure girl. That feeling was very warm and had a sense of home. Bai Weixi stared at Li Yuan and suddenly said, "Brother, I'll help you." Li Yuan smiled, "Sure. You can help me wash the vegetables later." Zhong Tingyu also smiled secretly, "Senior, do you mind if there is one more person?" Li Yuan laughed and nodded, "Then let's do it together. Anyway, the kitchen is big enough for the three of us to mess around." Zhong Tingyu hummed, "Senior, it's just cooking, what else do you want to mess around with?" Li Yuan smiled mischievously and looked Zhong Tingyu up and down. She was wearing silk pajamas at home today, and she only tied it lightly in the middle, showing off her curvy figure. In Li Yuan's mind, scenes of playing games in the kitchen instantly emerged, and he suddenly felt eager to move. Zhong Tingyu met Li Yuan's aggressive gaze, and seemed to understand something. Her pretty face turned red, and she glared at him fiercely, taking lotus steps and swaying towards the stairs. Li Yuan smiled and followed him. In the kitchen, there are some ingredients, but not many, all home-cooked dishes. Li Yuan looked at the two beauties in sexy pajamas, busy in the cafeteria, and felt itchy in his heart. From time to time, when one of them was not paying attention, he would secretly hug the other from behind, happy and joyful. After more than half an hour, the simple 4 dishes and 1 soup, plus rice, were ready. "Two beauties, the dishes are ready, come and taste how they taste." Zhong Tingyu looked at the 4 dishes of vegetarian dishes on the table, with an arc at the corner of her mouth, picked up the chopsticks, and took a piece of spicy tofu with expectation. Her eyes suddenly lit up. She gave Li Yuan a thumbs up and praised him. "Hee, Senior, it tastes really good." Li Yuan laughed, "Of course, I've been studying cooking for a while. Eat quickly, don't let it get cold. After dinner, we can get down to business." Bai Weixi ate the dishes and asked in confusion, "Brother, what else do you want to do after dinner?" Li Yuan smiled mischievously and answered seriously, "After dinner, of course you have to take a nap, and nap is the business." Zhong Tingyu's pretty face flushed, "But, Senior, can you be more serious?" Li Yuan spread his hands, "Am I not serious enough? Don't you two take a nap?" Bai Weixi and Zhong Tingyu looked at each other and suddenly fell silent, their hearts pounding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 423. They naturally take a nap, which is a habit they have developed since school. If they don't take a nap, they will be tired in the afternoon and evening. And if they take a nap, doesn't that mean that Li Yuan will sleep with them again? Will the same thing happen again as last night? Li Yuan saw Zhong Tingyu and Bai Weixi looking shy, and raised his mouth slightly, pretending to be puzzled and continued to ask. Hey, why are you two just eating and not talking? Zhong Tingyu rolled her eyes at Li Yuan and snorted, Who told you to cook so deliciously? After lunch, Li Yuan washed his face and was really ready to take a nap with anticipation. Looking at his two girlfriends sitting on the sofa watching TV, motionless, Li Yuan asked doubtfully, Xiaobai, Xiaoyu, are you two really not going to sleep? Zhong Tingyu's body trembled, and she said calmly, "Well, senior, I'm not sleepy yet, I'll catch up on the show first." Li Yuan said, and looked at Bai Wuxi again, and asked, "Wuxi, what about you?" Bai Wuxi blinked her eyelashes, glanced at Li Yuan, and felt a little eager, but a little embarrassed, and also refused. I also want to catch up on the show, you go to sleep by yourself." Li Yuan was speechless, thinking, "You two have discussed it, right? No wonder, the ancients said that 3 monks have no water to drink, and it is indeed easy for this man and 2 women to have no water to drink together. Ahem, then I'm going to sleep, if you are sleepy, come up by yourself." Li Yuan coughed, and walked up the stairs with regret in his heart. If you want to continue to enjoy double happiness, there is a long way to go. Further efforts are needed. After Li Yuan left, Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu looked at each other and both chuckled. "Wuxi, how about you go up and keep him company first?" Zhong Tingyu joked, "he even cooked for us both at noon." Bai Wuxi was too embarrassed to agree, so he replied, "You should go first. You drank a lot last night and may not be sober." Hearing the implication in Bai Wuxi's words, Zhong Tingyu blushed, which was equivalent to Bai Wuxi's direct admission. "Humph, then let this big bad guy bear it for now." Bai Wuxi also laughed, "Yeah, let him bear it, it's too bad to urge him." Zhong Tingyu pursed her lips and laughed, "Haha, Wuxi, do you think Li Yuan can sleep alone?" Bai Wuxi nodded her chin, "It should be possible, he didn't go to bed until 3 or 4 last night, and didn't get enough sleep." Zhong Tingyu asked in surprise, "He didn't go to bed until 3 or 4, and you were so busy that night?" Bai Wuxi looked at Zhong Tingyu strangely and joked, "Tingyu, is it possible that you were the one who was tormented in the end?" Zhong Tingyu understood what Bai Wuxi meant. In her mind, the vague scenes of last night emerged faintly, and her pretty face blushed. "Wuxi, you didn't seem to drink too much last night, how could you agree?" Zhong Tingyu was very curious. She couldn't think of why Bai Wuxi agreed to such a ridiculous thing. She drank too much and was not conscious. But Bai Wuxi was definitely conscious. Listening to Zhong Tingyu's question, Bai Wuxi looked very embarrassed and spoke in a daze. "I don't know either. At that time, after we did it in the bathroom, I was dazed and was carried to your bedroom by him. He said he went to the wrong place, and then I watched you guys do that." Zhong Tingyu hummed, "This big bad guy, 100% did it on purpose. He wanted us to be together at noon." Then, Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu, like real best friends, started chatting. And Li Yuan, lying on the bed alone. After waiting for a long time, Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu did not come up, and fell asleep in a daze. Last night and today, he was indeed a little tired, and even his waist began to hurt a little. Li Yuan was still woken up by the ringing of his mobile phone. Li Yuan looked at the incoming call prompt and pressed the answer button. "Hey, Daji, did you coax her?" Su Ji answered with great energy, "Yes, brother Yuan, your method is really effective. I have coaxed her and she has forgiven me." Li Yuan laughed secretly. If he couldn't coax her according to his method, then he would be reborn in vain. Li Yuan joked, "Okay, as long as you coax her, you can experience a happy college life in the future. Daji, you have also transformed from a boy to a real man. Hee, how do you feel? What do you think?" Listening to Li Yuan's bold topic, Su Ji looked a little embarrassed and still couldn't let go. "Ahem, it's okay. It's more comfortable than I thought." Li Yuan laughed, "Daji, you will never forget it after you experience it. Your fifth girl can be laid off in the future. Suji, brother Yuan, Yuchen, and I will go back to school first. We will come to play with you when we are free. You and your 2 sisters-in-law, continue to be happy." Li Yuan, "Well, that's fine. I will go to your school to find you when I am free in a few days." After hanging up the phone with Suji, Li Yuan smiled. Although he still didn't think highly of Suji and Wang Yuchen, he was secretly happy for his good buddy. At least, in this life, Suji really got Wang Yuchen. Even if they break up in the future, it's not a complete loss. The best way to deal with green tea is to eat them up. Chapter 245 Couple Games in the Classroom, Class Autumn Outing Plan. Glancing out the window, the heavy rain outside gradually stopped, and a ray of sunset emerged from the sky, dyeing the corner of the villa with a crimson color. Li Yuan was wearing pajamas, standing by the window, looking at the scene outside the window, with a smile on his lips. This kind of life now is actually quite pleasant. It is a life that I could not even dream of in my previous life. Li Yuan thought about his current entrepreneurial situation again. The game Honor of Kings is still under development, and the progress is very gratifying. With abundant human, financial, and material support, and with him controlling the general direction and providing various guidance, there are basically no bottlenecks. The overall structure of the game, including the Kenyan of Kings, inscription system, skill design, and the modeling and art of various main heroes, has been completed. The next step is to conduct overall testing. According to the plan proposed by Hu Zhenqiang and others, the game will be initially tested for internal testing around mid-December. If all goes well, it will be officially launched in January or February 2009. The overall game progress greatly exceeded his expectations and was much faster than before. According to the original idea, it would be good to be officially launched before May 2009. This game is Li Yuan's biggest expectation since his rebirth, and he has already thought about how to promote it. Although it does not have the convenience of TechSun and QQ, it has Zhihu and its own reputation. If you want to promote it, it is much more convenient than Riot Games' League of Legends promotion. As for Zhihu.com, it is still in the stage of rapid development, attracting a large number of college students to register. Its scale, popularity, and traffic are second only to Taiba, Weibo, Xiaonei.com and other websites, especially various hierarchical systems. It can satisfy some college students' desire to show off and make the forum more professional. In addition to games and Zhihu, what Li Yuan values most is the milk tea brand. During this period, his main focus has also been on the milk tea shop, including store decoration, raw materials, personnel, warehouses, packaging, processing, etc. At present, 10 milk tea shops have been renovated, warehouses have been rented, various packaging cups and packaging bags have been designed and customized, raw materials and processing factories are in place, everything is ready, only personnel recruitment, and once the training is in place, you can officially open your business. Li Yuan suddenly thought that he still had a large amount of cash. After gradually selling off his Biguanti shares, the total amount of cash in his hands would exceed 150 million. Keeping so much money in the bank is just a waste. The best way to take advantage of it is to invest. Li Yuan came to the study, turned on the computer, and checked some stock market conditions. Although he doesn't know much about stocks, he still knows which stocks will continue to be popular. Li Yuan mainly looked at the prices of several stocks such as TechSun, Tesla, Fruit, and Maotai. TechSun stock is now at a low point and has not yet formed a monopoly like it did after the 3Q war. In this time and space, there are many kinds of chat software. But the possibility of skyrocketing is low. To invest in this stock, it is better to invest in real estate. The same is true for Tesla, which has not yet had the time to really take off. There are only two stocks left, the national liquor Maotai and the fruit company. Maotai's market value will skyrocket in a ladder-like spiral in the future until it becomes a supergiant with a market value of over 1 trillion. Maotai's stock market is large enough, and its growth prospects are high enough. It will not be easily cut off, so it can be regarded as one of the alternative investment channels. As for Fruit Company, it has just launched the iPhone 3G smartphone, which is already available in China. It will not be long before it will be officially launched. Even the president of the fruit company cannot imagine how popular the kidney machine will be in China, and it will directly crush other brands. Li Yuan browsed in thought carefully, and decided to use a large amount of cash in his hand to buy a part of the fruit company's stocks, then buy a small part of the Mutai company's stocks, and keep a part to wait for the expansion of the milk tea shop. In addition, it seems that you can also invest in some high-end residences, such as large flats, duplex apartments, and even villas in urban areas. While thinking, the sound of lightning and thunder outside had faded away, and the sound of rain gradually stopped. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 424. Suddenly, a shout of senior woke Li Yuan from his thoughts. Li Yuan looked up and saw that Zhong Tingyu was standing at the door of the study in pajamas, looking at him with a faint smile. Zhong Tingyu leaned lazily at the door of the study, her slender and white legs swaying under her silk pajamas, outlining her perfect figure that made all men salivate. Looking at Zhong Tingyu suddenly appearing in front of the study, Li Yuan smiled in his heart, opened his arms, patted his thighs, and said with a smile, "Little moon, come here." Zhong Tingyu's pretty face blushed, and she walked over with lotus steps swaying in the wind, and came to Li Yuan shyly. Just as she was about to speak, Li Yuan reached out and hugged her, held her in his arms, and sat on Li Yuan's thighs. Zhong Tingyu exclaimed, subconsciously stretched out her snow-white arms, hugged Li Yuan's arms, and snorted. "Senior, what are you going to do?" Li Yuan asked back, "What do you think?" As Li Yuan spoke, his idle big hands seemed to have their own consciousness, and suddenly they were not controlled by the brain. He went upstream from his slender waist to visit the playful Xiongda and Xiong-er. Zhong Tingyu was hugged by Li Yuan, and she had already gotten used to Li Yuan's improper behavior. She let out a whimper and let Li Yuan continue to do whatever he wanted. After being together for a long time, she also took off her original pure shyness and began to enjoy the sweet interaction between men and women in love. Just like a gate, once the valve is broken, it is impossible to close it after tasting the marrow. Not only men will get addicted, but women will too. "Senior, when did you run to the study? Are you writing a novel?" Zhong Tingyu asked curiously. After knowing that Li Yuan had written novels, she also tried to write a few chapters of online novels. There were thousands of ideas in her mind, but when she really started, it became the following situation. Brain, writing a novel is very simple: characters, places, time, stories, beginning, development, turning point, foreshadowing, pulling out expectations, creating climax. Hands, what are you talking about? I'll give you the pen, you write. Only by trying it yourself can you know the difficulty of writing a book. Therefore, Zhong Tingyu admired Li Yuan very much in her heart. When he was busy with school, running a company, and accompanying several girlfriends every day, he could still guarantee to update 10,000 words every day. It was simply unimaginable. Li Yuan was greedily sucking the smell of Zhong Tingyu's body, and went to play games with the two sisters Xiongda and Xiong-er. He replied vaguely and casually, "No, I'm watching stocks." "Watching stocks?" Zhong Tingyu blushed, turned her head in surprise, and glanced at the computer on the desk. The dense stock data on it, various red and green lines, filled the computer desktop, making her very curious. Some time ago, when the two of them came together to buy this villa, she heard Li Yuan say that he had invested in a stock worth more than 100 million. Zhong Tingyu asked expectantly, "Senior, I am unfamiliar with stocks, can you tell me about it?" As a student of finance and accounting, and from the Jiangnan region, Zhong Tingyu is very interested in investment and business. In her mind, since Li Yuan can make a lot of money from stocks, he naturally knows a lot about stocks. Li Yuan was teasing Xiongda and Xiong with his hands, so he was in no mood to explain stocks. Besides, he didn't know much about stocks themselves, and it was only after he was reborn in this life that he learned a little bit. Li Yuan coughed seriously. Little Moon, be serious, do serious things. Listening to Li Yuan's serious words and actions, Zhong Tingyu's body began to heat up slightly and began to tremble. Because she was at home, she was only wearing a nightgown, and except for her panties, she was almost completely naked, so it was easy for Li Yuan to attack her crystal tower. Zhong Tingyu whispered shyly, "Senior, don't, Wei 11 is waiting for us downstairs. It's sunny outside, let's go out for a walk, we've been at home all day." Li Yuan smiled, "It's okay, let her wait downstairs for a while." As he spoke, he began to move. Zhong Tingyu felt Li Yuan's actions and exclaimed, acting coquettishly and shyly, "You big bad guy, you only know how to bully me. If Wei 11 sees this, it's really embarrassing. I just told Wei 11 that I'll be down in a while. Don't talk yet, change your posture." Li Yuan smiled indifferently, sat on the chair, hugged Zhong Tingyu, and let her body change direction, with her back to him. "Stinky Senior, big bad guy." Zhong Tingyu's face instantly turned red like blood, lying on the computer desk, feeling the rhythmic shaking of her body. Downstairs. Bai Wuxi waited and waited, but Li Yuan and Zhong Tingyu never came down. Just as she was about to take a step to go upstairs to take a look, suddenly, she thought of something and stopped again. Her face turned slightly red, she looked upstairs with resentment and spat softly. After so long, the two hadn't come down yet, she could already imagine what happened upstairs. They must be doing something shameful. Bai Wuxi shyly muttered to herself, "Stinky brother, you are not afraid of tiring you to death, you are so greedy every day." From last night to now, Li Yuan has played poker with her and Zhong Tingyu 4 times respectively. She was even a little worried now about whether Li Yuan's body could withstand such high-intensity exercise. They're not worried. What should I be worried about? Brother Stinky, the big bad guy. I remember seeing a food introduction somewhere. It said that some foods can aphrodisiac. Why don't you secretly give the big bad a supplement? Bai Wuxi suddenly had thoughts in his mind. Humph, forget it, he is so capable now, if he continues to do anything, we will be a little unbearable. Bai Wuxi walked around the living room a few times, suppressed his slightly restless heart, and came alone to the garden after the rain. After experiencing the baptism of the storm, most of the flowers in the garden have been destroyed and their fragrance has disappeared, but there are still a few flowers that are still stubbornly facing the sunset and breathing in the breath of autumn. Breathing the fresh air after the rain, Bai Wuxi looked at the sky. Suddenly, a curved rainbow appeared in the sky, hanging in the sky. After the storm, there will always be a rainbow. I hope it will be the same for me. Bai Wuxi smiled at the corner of his eyes, murmured to himself, took out his mobile phone, and recorded the scene. This weekend went by so fast in the blink of an eye. Li Yuan, Bai Wuxi, and Zhong Tingyu, a man and 2 women, all stayed in this villa except for going shopping at night. The relationship between Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu has become more and more harmonious over the past day. There is no tit-for-tat feeling like before, and they have begun to develop towards the trend of best friends. Unfortunately, what makes Li Yuan regretful is that although he spent more than a day, he could play some pleasant 2-player games with Zhong Tingyu and Bai Wuxi respectively. But I didn't enjoy the double happiness again. Although Li Yuan felt a little regretful, he was not too disappointed. Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu were only young girls of 18 or 19 years old. They were both the proud girls of heaven and were very thin-skinned. When they were sober, they would naturally not how embarrassed to do such a shameful thing. Anyway, there is a long way to go, and there will definitely be opportunities in the future. After the heavy rain, November entered, and the weather in the Magic City suddenly began to feel a little cooler. The most obvious and intuitive feeling is that there are suddenly more long white legs on campus. In the first computer science class on Monday, Li Yuan took the initiative to sit with Xia's Haijin. The two had not seen each other for 3 days and even missed him. Li Yuan looked at Xia's Haijin, whose eyelashes were blinking slightly and her body was straight, as if she was listening to the class attentively but also seemed a little absent-minded, with a smile on her lips. He quietly reached out and placed one hand on Xia's Haijin's thigh wearing jeans, and with his fingertips, he drew a trace of love on the amazingly elastic thigh. Xia's Haijin didn't experience much of this kind of intimate interaction between lovers in the classroom. The main reason is that Li Yuan often skips classes. When he is not skipping classes, he rarely takes the initiative to sit in the front row with Xia's Haijin. Xia's Haijin turned her head with blushing cheeks and glanced at Li Yuan. She happened to see Li Yuan looking at her with a half-smile, and suddenly turned her head back quickly like a frightened deer. Xia's Haijin was a good student who studied hard and didn't dare to speak in class, but Li Yuan didn't care. While Professor Yi Gang was in class, he turned his back to the class and wrote formulas on the blackboard. He quietly turned sideways, put it close to Xia's Haijin's earlobe, smelled the fragrance of the hair, and gently touched Xia's Haijin's earlobe with his mouth, smiling and whispering. "Baby's Haijin, have you missed me these past few days? If the confession fails, chase her bestie." Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 425. Xia's Haijin's body tensed upright. She was frightened by Li Yuan's intimate and bold behavior in class, and her face flushed with embarrassment. Her whole body was visibly trembling, and the blush spread all over her neck. The teeth opened slightly, and only one weak word was spat out. "Think. Hee, I miss you too," Li Yuan chuckled, took his hand away from Xia's Haijin's thigh, and grabbed the little hand on the desk. Perhaps because of the cooler weather, Xia's Haijin's little hands were a little cold. Li Yuan put her little hand in his, chuckled and said, "Why are your hands so cold? I'll cover them for you." "Yeah," Xia's Haijin hummed, her heartbeat speeding up. Beside them, Gao Xian, Li Lanrong and other girls had heard the two of them and looked sideways, with strange smiles in their eyes. Finally the get out of class was over. Xia's Haijin's tense body finally relaxed. At this time, squad leader Xiang Yangkaiu suddenly stood up, looked at everyone, and announced something. "Dear classmates, it has been more than 2 months since we stepped into the university gate, and everyone is relatively happy together. After discussion among several of our class committees, we want to organize an autumn farm trip this weekend, and I would like to seek your opinions from all the students." As soon as Xiang Yangkaiu's words came out, all the students in the class started talking loudly. In universities, it is very common to go out together and have dinner parties like farmhouses, which are held in almost every class. This can not only increase the good memories of college days, but also promote communication among classmates. The most important point is that you can have a legitimate excuse, which can bring the relationship between men and women in the class closer and create love opportunities for some students. After a while, the class began to become noisy, and everyone expressed their opinions. "Squad leader, our class is also going to hold a farmhouse party. I think it's pretty good, and I'm the first to agree." "I also agree. The second class next door has already held 2 gatherings, but we haven't held one yet. I have wanted to propose it for a long time, but I have been busy with club affairs recently and forgot to tell the monitor." Farmhouses, autumn outings, etc. are all very good. I looked at the class schedule and there are no classes this weekend, so we can relax. I heard from my seniors that there is a good place that is not far from our school. We can go there. Li Yuan looked slightly startled when he heard Xiang Yangkaiu's proposal, and he also felt a little yearning in his heart. In my previous life, when I was at the Shanghai University of Technology, the farmhouse music held was very interesting. Even though it has been many years since I graduated, I can still remember it clearly to this day. Li Yuan looked at Xia's Haijin and said with a smile, "Haijin, do you want to go?" Xia's Haijin glanced at Li Yuan and replied shyly, "I listen to you. If you go, I will go." Li Yuan smiled, "What if I don't go?" Xia's Haijin replied without hesitation, "Then I won't go either." Li Lanrong on the side listened to the conversation between the two and couldn't help but snickered and joked. "Yo yo yo, I'm showing off my affection again. How can I use an idiom to describe it? The husband sings and the wife follows." Yes, it is the husband singing and the wife follows. After hearing this, Xia's Haijin blushed as usual and lowered her head slightly, looking like a pitiful and cute little girl. Li Yuan was very thick-skinned. He looked at Li Lanrong and fought back. "Classmate wrong, you are about to taste the sweetness of love, right? How is your recent progress with Lu?" Hearing Li Yuan's joke, Li Lanrong looked stunned and his face turned red. These days, she and Lucia have indeed gotten very close and chatted happily. They already have a good impression of each other. However, this feeling is still very weak, and the two of them are very hidden. The other roommates in the dormitory didn't know that she was talking with Lucia. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Li Yuan suddenly revealed it in front of everyone. Li Lanrong lowered his head shyly, and his heart began to beat rapidly. At this time, Gao Xian suddenly asked in surprise, "Mr. Li, what did you just say? Is wrong in love with someone?" Xia's Haijin also stared at Li Yuan in surprise. She had been in the dormitory these past few days and didn't notice it. How did Li Yuan find it? Li Yuan laughed, "You have to ask wrong for details. Maybe in a few days, wrong will make the official announcement." Gao Xian looked at Li Lanrong with a probing expression, Wrong, are you really in love? Why didn't we know?" Li Lanrong shook his head with a flushed face and explained in a low voice, "We haven't talked about it yet." "Tch, no one will believe you if you say we haven't talked about it." Gao Xian chuckled, pinched Li Lanrong's face with his fingers, and teased. "Your face is so red, and you said you're not in love. Come on, tell me, who are you talking to? Do I know him? Is he from our class?" Just as Li Lanrong was thinking about how to make excuses, Monitor Xiang Yangkai began to speak again. "Everyone is enthusiastic about the class party, so let's show our hands." Xiang Yangkai smiled and asked, "If you object, please raise your hands." All the students in computer class 1 looked at me and I looked at you. No one was embarrassed to raise his hand. A cunning look flashed in Xiang Tan Yangkai's eyes, and he made a decision happily. "Since everyone agrees, let's do this first. We will announce other issues such as class fees, travel, and locations in the class group." Chapter 246 Zhu Yanyan's Troubles, Li Yuan's Counterattack. Soon, the first class autumn outing plan of the 2008 Computer Science and Technology Class 1 of Daxia University was passed unanimously. After the unanimous approval of the autumn outing plan, the atmosphere in the whole class suddenly became lively. These young men and women, who are in the midst of the outbreak of pure hormones, have begun to imagine how interesting and sweet the first autumn outing plan in their college life will be. Even Xia's Haijin, who has always been quiet, has a faint yearning on her face. On the way to the cafeteria, Li Yuan and Xia's Haijin held hands, ignoring the eyes of passers-by around them, and continued to show their love. "It has been 3 days since I accompanied the treasure girl, and today I will accompany her well." Beside him, Lucia, Wu Hao, and Su Ziqiang, 3 follower roommates, followed. The 3 of them were doing internships at Li Yuan's entrepreneurial base, and they kept talking about Mr. Li every day, looking like loyal friends. In addition to the boys, there were naturally 3 girls, Li Lanrong, Gao Xian, and Ji Chen. They were used to it. Whenever Li Yuan and Xia's Haijin were together, they would come over and eat in the cafeteria together, vying to be the bright and conspicuous light bulb. Gao Xian looked at Li Yuan and asked, "President Li, all the members of our online literature club want to see you and ask you to tell us about online literature teaching. When do you have time?" "Let me give a lecture." Li Yuan looked a little surprised. Gao Xian answered as a matter of course, you are the first president of our Spark Literature Club, and they all came for your fame. You don't know, after I slightly revealed this literary club, you took the lead in establishing it, how many literature lovers applied, and the personal application forms I received exceeded 3 digits. Li Yuan was even more surprised. There are really so many people. You are not lying to me, right? I remember that the entry requirements I set were very high, and ordinary people should not be able to stick to it, right? As an online writer for 2 lifetimes, Li Yuan naturally understands what is the most important quality for online writers. Persistence and hard work. Only with persistence and hard work can you survive in the online writing circle. Other talents, writing, creativity, etc. are only factors that increase the upper limit, not basic conditions. The entry threshold set by Li Yuan is very simple. Applicants who want to join the Spark Literature Club must submit a short story of 2,000 words written by themselves every day. After meeting the requirements for 7 consecutive days, they can apply to join. In the online literature circle, stable updates are the most important thing. If they cannot be updated stably, only a very small number of authors can make money. Li Yuan thought that after setting such conditions, those applicants would give up. Unexpectedly, there would still be hundreds of people applying. This number is a bit exaggerated. Gao Xian pouted, "What good will it do if I lie to you? To make you happy? If you don't believe me, ask Rong Rong and Chen Chen. There are already hundreds of manuscripts in the mailbox." Ge Chen Chen smiled and nodded, "Yes, Zhaijin also knows that we have been reading the manuscripts these days. Some people's stories are really interesting." Li Lanrong joked, "That's right, 2/3 of the applicants are girls, and some even attached many beautiful photos. If you don't know, you might think you are in a talent show. Mr. Li, you are really popular with women. Hee, do you want us to find some beautiful photos and send them to you?" Gao Xian looked at Li Yuan with a strange look on her face. In the past few days, she really saw how charming Li Yuan was. For some girls, even if they knew that Li Yuan was a philandering scumbag who was cheating on several women, they were like moths to a flame and scrambled to throw themselves into this extremely gorgeous fire. Even the monitor of their computer class once submitted an application to Qin Yang Kaiu. Gao Xian smiled secretly, "Hee, of course, this is the summer flower male god who is loved by everyone. Flowers bloom when he sees them, and cars get flat tires when they see him." Li Yuan smiled. He had long been accustomed to their jokes and teasing. Who let everyone who pays attention to him know that he is a scumbag who is playing with multiple women at the same time. There will always be girls who are proud of their good figure and good looks and want to get close to him. With his current fame, it may really attract some crazy fans who want to get close to him by joining the Spark Literature Club. Just like if Tudo and Jilun opened a writing and music training class, they might also attract many fans who chase stars to attend the class, and they would be willing to pay for it. What's more, in the Spark Literature Club opened by Li Yuan, it is all free. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 426. Li Yuan didn't care about the money, it was just for fun. Li Yuan casually replied, "You can figure it out. I'll go meet them when the time is set. As for the lectures, let me just talk about my opinions on online writing." Suddenly, a gust of autumn wind blew by. Xia's Haijin's clothes were a little thin today and her body shrank. Seeing this, Li Yuan took off his Armani jacket and hung it on Xia's Haijin's shoulder, gently reminding Haijin, the temperature has started to cool down today, so wear thicker clothes and go shopping with me after school in the afternoon. Xia's Haijin glanced at Li Yuan and was deeply moved. She whispered, "Are you cold?" Li Yuan stretched out his hand to hold Xia's Haijin in his arms, and said with a serious smile, "I won't feel cold if I hold you in my arms." When Li Lanrong saw this, his expression was very exaggerated. "Goose goose, can you two stop showing off your affection in front of us? We haven't even had lunch yet, and we are going to be strangled to death." Li Yuan laughed and fought back, "Who makes you want to be a light bulb? To be a light bulb, you must have the consciousness to be a light bulb." Gao Xian looked like he suddenly understood, and answered with a smile, "I understand, Mr. Li dislikes us being light bulbs and disturbing his intimacy with Haijin." "Oh, that's it? Li Yuan, you told me earlier, we don't want to be light bulbs." Li Lanrong curled his lips and waved to Lucia and the others who were following him. Hey, Lucia, Wu Hao, Xiaoqiang, you three have some sharp eyesight, don't be like light bulbs." Listening to Li Lanrong's silver bell-like voice, Lucia felt like there were ants in her heart, itching and unbearable, an indescribable feeling. Wu Hao looked at Li Yuan, who was showing affection, and coughed, "Ahem, brother Yuan, sister-in-law, let's go then." Li Yuan laughed and glared, "Get out of here and talk about love if you have nothing else to do. You will save yourself being a light bulb." Wu Hao pretended to look aggrieved, "Brother Yuan, we are not as charming as you, so we can't find a partner." Li Yuan glanced at Wu Hao and Lucia playfully, then gestured to the three girls next to Xia's Haijin with his eyes, and joked, "Isn't this ready-made? These three beauties are all still single. If you work hard and take the initiative, won't love come? Am I right, classmate Lucia? Love has come, right?" Lucia's heart skipped a beat when she met Li Yuan's playful eyes. The tall man, who was 1.89 meters tall, had a slightly dark face, and his face suddenly turned red. His eyes were a little evasive, and he answered hesitantly, "Brother Yuan, no way, don't laugh at me." Li Yuan couldn't help laughing in his heart. Seeing Lucia's expression was like seeing the shy and innocent reflection of himself. "Classmate Lucia, as a man, you must be bold and courageous, so that girls will like you." After Li Yuan finished speaking, he deliberately asked Li Lanrong, "Classmate Rong, am I right?" Li Lanrong was also startled by Li Yuan's pointed words. He secretly glanced at Lucia, who was in a panic, and retorted loudly with his cheeks slightly red, "Li Yuan, why are you asking me? I don't know." However, anyone could tell that something was wrong with Li Lanrong's expression at this time. Gao Xian covered his mouth, his eyes moving back and forth between Lucia and Li Lanrong, thinking deeply in his heart, and suddenly he seemed to have cleared away the clouds, and understood some of the abnormal phenomena of Li Lanrong these days. He, it turns out there is a story, Rong, you even hid it from the rest of us, how sad. Rong, when did you two start?" Li Lanrong blushed and hummed shyly, "What are you talking about? Hey, I suddenly forgot. I left something in the classroom. I'll go back and get it. You guys go to eat first." After saying this, Li Lanrong ran away with a blushing face. Only a few people were left, messy in the autumn wind. After school in the afternoon, Li Yuan took the initiative to drive Xia's Haijin to Longjia building, went shopping on the street, and bought her many new clothes. Seeing that Li Yuan was already holding large and small bags in his hands but still wanted to continue buying, he kept discouraging him. "Husband, don't buy it, it's enough for me to wear." Li Yuan rubbed Xia's Haijin's head. This silly girl, even though she knew he was rich, was still saving money for herself and was not willing to spend money lavishly. Even the clothes they wear every time they meet are bought when they go shopping together. Hyjin, be obedient and don't keep thinking about saving money for me. We are not short of money. Oh, Xia's Hyjin nodded obediently. Li Yuan looked at Xia's Hyjin's expression and felt helpless. She probably didn't listen to what he said. Sudden. Li Yuan remembered something. Hyjin, cousin Yan, how are you doing recently? Has that guy named Yin Sheng continued to harass her? Xia's Hyjin didn't expect that Li Yuan would suddenly ask about this matter. A pair of clear and bright eyes stared at Li Yuan, his eyes seemed hesitant. Li Yuan saw it and knew that Xia's Hyjin had something on his mind. What's wrong? Is there anything else that you can't tell me? Xia's Hyjin bit her lip, stared at Li Yuan, and decided to tell the situation. Husband, my cousin told me that the guy named Yin Sheng has been harassing her even more intensely. He wanted to do something to her several times, and even threatened her with Professor Yin Ji. Li Yuan was startled and immediately became serious. Why didn't you tell me this news earlier? Xia's Hyjin was frightened by Li Yuan's serious expression, her body trembled slightly, and she couldn't speak very well. She explained in a low voice, I'm afraid of troubling you. Seeing Xia's Hyjin's cautious appearance, Li Yuan sighed deeply in his heart. This treasure girl, even though she has such a relationship with him, is still so cautious. Sometimes, they don't look like a man and a woman at all, but more like a domineering president and a timid secretary. Li Yuan touched Xia's Hyjin's head lovingly and tried to speak in a gentle tone. Hyjin, I am your boyfriend, and I will be your husband in the future. I am the most important man in your life. You can trust me unconditionally. If you encounter any problems, you can tell me and we will face them together. Do you understand? Xia's Hyjin glanced at Li Yuan shyly and nodded solemnly. Li Yuan looked in the direction of the University of Science and Technology, and there was a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. He had no good feelings towards the Yin father and son who forced Chu Yanyan to commit suicide by jumping off a building in the previous life. He wished that these two beasts would be sent to hell to repent immediately. Li Yuan pondered for a while and quickly made a decision in his heart. After encountering that incident when he went to the University of Science and Technology that day, he guessed that this matter would definitely not be so amicable. With Yin Sheng's arrogant personality, there would inevitably be a conflict. Li Yuan looked at Xia's Hyjin and told her, Hyjin, call your cousin now and tell her to be careful these days and not to go out alone. After encountering anything, don't panic for the time being. I will handle it. Xia's Hyjin hesitated and looked at Li Yuan, call now. Li Yuan nodded, yes, call now. Xia's Hyjin took out her mobile phone and dialed the number directly in front of Li Yuan, repeating what Li Yuan said to her. Xia's Hyjin suddenly handed the phone to Li Yuan, Li Yuan, my cousin asked me to give you the phone. Li Yuan took the phone calmly and greeted him. Sister Yanyan. Chu Yanyan's magnetic and pleasant voice came from the other end of the phone. Li Yuan, I'm fine. I can handle my own affairs. You don't have to worry about it. Thank you. Listening to Chu Yanyan's words, Li Yuan sighed helplessly in his heart. If she could handle this matter by herself, she would not have been forced to jump off the building and commit suicide in her previous life. Her personality is similar to Xia's Hyjin. She is very strong in her heart and doesn't want to trouble others. Li Yuan said calmly, Sister Yanyan, I'm worried that he will jump off the wall. You should pay attention to your safety recently. I will handle it here and solve this trouble as soon as possible. Li Yuan, you really don't have to bother you. I will handle it. Chu Yanyan still insisted. Li Yuan interrupted her bluntly, Sister Yanyan, I know Yin Sheng better than you do. Don't worry, leave it to me. After Li Yuan finished speaking, he returned the phone to Xia's Hyjin without waiting for Chu Yanyan to answer. Hyjin, you chat with your cousin first, I'll go to the side to make a phone call. Xia's Haijin answered obediently. Li Yuan came to the side and called Tan Zonghua. After that day, he asked Tan Zonghua to investigate Yin's father and son privately. Driven by money, private detectives worked very hard and really found many clues to prove the problems of Yin's father and son. These evidences, with money paving the way, have flowed out of the hands of private detectives. With money, you can be so willful. For people like Yin's father and son who don't have a particularly strong background, you can investigate everything clearly. There is a saying in this world that Li Yuan agrees with very much. The most important thing to do is to be serious. Once you are serious, no one can stand the scrutiny. When Tan Zonghua saw that it was Li Yuan calling, his eyes lit up and he immediately answered the call respectfully. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 427. Boss, do you have something to talk to me about? Li Yuan asked, Old Tan, is it convenient for you to talk now? Tan Zonghua quickly replied, It's convenient to talk, boss, please go ahead. Li Yuan, what's the result of the matter I asked you to investigate? Is there enough evidence? Tan Zonghua immediately replied, Boss, the matter you asked me to investigate has been roughly investigated. All the evidence at present can prove that Yin Ji has an extramarital affair, threatened female college students to have sex, and there are a series of problems such as falsely embezzling special research project funds, embezzlement, and bribery. The evidence is in hand. If it is exposed, Yin will have to stay in jail for decades even if he doesn't get shot. As for Yin Sheng, his behavior is even worse. He has drunk driving, hit and run, and caused death. However, there is no sufficient evidence yet. Some JC is involved. In addition, he has forced girls to have sex many times, causing many girls to miscarry. Although Li Yuan knew that Yin's father and son had done many evil things, he was shocked after hearing what Tan Zonghua said this time. Let alone 2008, this kind of thing would occasionally happen even before rebirth. The dark side of some societies is always more exaggerated than you think. After Tan Zonghua finished speaking, he listened to Li Yuan's silence and asked respectfully, Boss, what should we do now? It was not easy to get this information from private detectives. Li Yuan spent millions before and after. However, it is true that money can make the devil push the mill. With so much money spent, the information obtained is also explosive. This is also because the social environment in this era is relatively relaxed. Yin's father and son probably didn't expect that someone would be willing to spend millions to find a private detective to investigate them. This money is enough to buy life. Li Yuan thought about it, and when he thought of Chu Yanyan's suicide by jumping off the building, he no longer hesitated and decided to give a thundering blow. Old Tan, save these materials and submit them to the authorities. Pay attention to the method and find professionals to do it. Money is not a problem. Tan Zonghua was very excited when he heard that Li Yuan was finally willing to take action. He knew that as long as he did this, he would become Li Yuan's true confidant. Even better than Hu Zhenqiang, Xie Zheng, Lin Yue, and others. And he himself is indeed very talented in this area. Even if he is only an amateur, after reading relevant books and studying, it seems like he has learned it by himself. Tan Zonghua answered seriously, Boss, don't worry, I promise to get it done. Well, I have also reminded you how to do it. With your intelligence, you will definitely understand it as soon as you hear it, Li Yuan replied with a cold look. Pay attention to the original evidence you get. This kind of evidence cannot be handed over directly to the authorities. Important people must be found. Just like the case of Yin Sheng's drunk driving and hit and run, this case is still under investigation, but there is a lack of important clues. He spent 300,000 yuan to buy this clue from a private detective. And in the official circles, there are also people who have been investigating this case and want to bring the criminals to justice. There is a dark side to society, and there is a righteous side. They just need to hand the clues to the people on the righteous side, and then wait and see. Even if the righteous side is bought, Li Yuan is not worried, he still has the most important means to do it. Chapter 247 Milk Tea Shop Opening, the first cup of milk tea in autumn. After Li Yuan finished the call and made arrangements, he suddenly thought of something else. It is the safety of his family and girlfriend. Now he has not really started to compete in business, so he has been at peace, but when he develops in the future, he may encounter some accidents. It is easy to dodge an open gun, but it is difficult to guard against an arrow from the dark. Those real business tycoons basically have bodyguards to protect their own safety. Li Yuan thought about it and still felt that it was necessary to find a few bodyguards first, or he could be a full-time driver to protect his family. Even if it may not be used, it is still helpful to be prepared. Li Yuan continued to order Tan Zonghua to do it. Old Tan, please help me find a few more bodyguards, the kind with real skills and knowledge. When Tan Zonghua heard that Li Yuan had other instructions, he was overjoyed and nodded quickly. Boss, don't worry, I will help you find a good one as soon as possible. Li Yuan, well, that's it. If there is any situation over there, please report it to me in time. Okay, boss. After hanging up the phone, Li Yuan walked towards Xia's Haijin, who was waiting anxiously, touched her head, and comforted her. Haijin, I have already made arrangements here. You and your cousin don't have to worry too much. You will see the results soon. The two bastards of Yin's father and son will definitely get the punishment they deserve. Xia's Haijin nodded obediently and thanked him seriously. Husband, thank you. Li Yuan smiled and joked, you call me husband, isn't this what I should do? There is no need to be so polite between us. Well, Xia's Haijin's bright eyes curved into crescents, revealing her current mood. Li Yuan smiled and said, Haijin, it's getting late now. My mother is waiting for us at home to cook. Let's go home. Xia's Haijin said shyly. She had gotten used to meeting Li Yuan's mother from her original trepidation. Li Yuan smiled and said, my mother keeps nagging me to take you home. She cooks some local dishes tonight and is waiting for you to come home to eat. Xia's Haijin's eyes curved into crescents and she whispered, ah, I can go back and cook. Ha ha ha, silly girl, you're also grabbing the cooking. Li Yuan smiled, took Xia's Haijin's hand and walked back. It's okay, my mother is bored at home, so don't deprive her of the fun of cooking. On November 5th, Li Yuan brought Zhong Tingyu to the main store of the Chayan USE milk tea shop located in Longjia building. Today is the last day before the opening, and the final training for the recruited frontline service staff is carried out. As a milk tea brand with great development prospects in the future, Li Yuan also attaches great importance to this milk tea shop. From the storefront, to the decoration, production, and packaging, and the staff, he carefully selected and prepared them all, and was ready to open a domestically high-end and well-known tea brand. Especially for the front-line service staff, he and Zhong Tingyu personally interviewed and screened them. In short, there is only one requirement, that is, they must have a good figure, be beautiful, and be relatively young. Correspondingly, Li Yuan also gave a very high salary, much higher than other milk tea shops on the market. This is considered to be paying for the appearance. When Li Yuan drove a Porsche 911 and took Zhong Tingyu to the Chayan USE headquarters in Longjia building, more than 40 young men and women were already standing in front of the door. From a distance, the discussion of the crowd around could be heard. Although the Magic City is a super metropolis with beautiful women, it is still very eye-catching to see so many young men and women with good looks in the same place at once. What kind of store is this? It looks very high-end and the decoration is very modern. However, although the store is not big, can so many waiters be used? Look carefully at these girls, they are all very good looking, they are all above 1.65 meters tall, they are wearing clothes that are a bit like Cheongsam, they are really very elegant. Tisk, these girls are not particularly beautiful, but they look like uniforms when they wear these clothes, who knows what they are doing. Look closer, there seems to be a logo on the chest, this font should be a special font, it seems to be the 4 words Cha Yan Use. You are really perverted, you are a bear who only looks at girls, you are a pervert. In the crowd, Li Yuan, wearing a small suit, led Zhong Tingyu, who looked like an urban beauty, to the door of Cha Yan Use. Seeing Li Yuan and the others coming, manager Su Yunting immediately stepped over and greeted them with a smile. "Hello, Mr. Li, Mr. Zhong." Li Yuan glanced at the woman in front of him, who was full of royal sister style. This was the manager he had hired at a high price. She was mainly responsible for the product marketing and other businesses of the entire milk tea shop. The person in front of her is Su Yunting, 28 years old this year. He used to be a sales manager in other catering industries and has rich experience. After Li Yuan talked about some of his ideas, he immediately understood them and had great potential. Li Yuan smiled and asked, "Mr. Su, are all the people here?" "Mr. Li, they are all here. I have also conducted business training according to your requirements for the previous arrangements and introductions, and all of them can take up their posts immediately." Su Yunting looked very capable. In the past few days, she has been training employees according to Li Yuan's opinions, including various etiquette, service attitude, milk tea making, etc. As a milk tea brand with ambitious goals, it is necessary to establish a very high style at the beginning and give the first batch of customers a high-end feeling, which is the so-called brand value. When the taste of milk tea is not too different from other milk tea shops, it can only improve the brand value with service, environment, packaging, etc. Li Yuan nodded slightly and said, "Well, that's fine, let me say a few more words." Su Yunting nodded quickly, turned around, looked at the more than 40 young men and women in front of him, put on a serious expression and said, "Everyone welcomes Mr. Li to speak to us." The more than 40 young waiters were all interviewed by Li Yuan and Zhong Tingyu in person. They naturally knew themselves and even knew Li Yuan's true identity. After all, in the past 2 months, Li Yuan's name has been well known on the internet. Anyone who often surfs the internet, listens to music, or likes to read novels has probably heard of Li Yuan's name. After seeing Li Yuan appear in front of them as scheduled, the whole scene suddenly became a little agitated. Some girls suddenly had their eyes shining, and they wanted to eat Li Yuan immediately, and whispered secretly, "If the confession fails, chase her bestie." Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 428. Wow, Mr. Li is really here. This milk tea brand store is really opened by Xiahua. He. From now on, can't we just say that we are all employees of the Xiahua male god? I'm so happy to be able to see Xiahua's male idol up close every day. I'm going to get drunk. I have to say, Xiahua is really tall and handsome. He has super temperament and a low-key luxury feeling. He looks better in person than in the video. I just glanced at it, and my heart was pounding, and I felt so nervous that I could hardly breathe. Don't be a nymphomaniac. A super tall, rich, and handsome man like Xiahua is not our cup of tea. Did you see this beautiful girl next to Xiahua's male god? She is our boss lady, one of the 2 legendary campus beauties of Daxia University. She is really very beautiful, no wonder she was chosen by the summer flower god. Hey, it would be great if I could be the girlfriend of the summer flower god, even if it is just a short-term girlfriend for a few months. I would be satisfied if I tell anyone about it. It would definitely be very honorable. Not only do you have face when you go out, but life in X is also very enjoyable. You see, Xiahua is really very strong. He can talk to 4 girlfriends at the same time. He must be particularly strong in that aspect. Li Yuan's hearing has become very good after being reborn. Hearing the whispers of some female shop assistants in front of him, his face turned slightly red. She is worthy of being a young and beautiful girl working in the Magic City. She knows a lot and is open-minded enough. This is also one of the disadvantages of being famous. As long as these young girls inquire carefully, they will hear their names and know themselves. It's like the feeling that Joe opened a hot pot restaurant and went to work by himself. Working for an idol is full of motivation. Li Yuan looked at the young man and woman in front of him and coughed. Everyone, be quiet. As soon as Li Yuan finished speaking, there was an instant silence. Everyone looked at Li Yuan, eagerly waiting for him to speak. Li Yuan smiled and spoke. He already had a plan in mind. He just put forward requirements and standards first, and then drew the pie. This is what most companies do. It's just that some companies paint a pie that is like a castle in the air. Generally, you can't eat it, you can only smell it. The boss eats meat, but the employees can't even drink soup. And he himself spent real money, salary, and performance, all of which were the best treatment. Since we want to build the best milk tea brand, all benefits must also be the highest benchmark in the industry. My first impression when I look at everyone is that they all look young, energetic, and motivated. This also shows that everyone has great respect for our tea Beauty and Moonlight, as well as for me and Mr. Zhong. They are all very confident. Tomorrow, our high-end milk tea brand Chayan USE will officially open for business. Before that, our President Su has also trained you. Everyone must know what our goal is for Tea Face and Moonlight. Can any of you tell me? As soon as Li Yuan finished speaking, many peers among the more than 40 shop assistants immediately raised their hands. Li Yuan pointed at a girl in front of him who was very thin, very delicate in appearance, and looked like Xiaojiabiu. Your name is Gu Yunchu, right? Yes, Mr. Li, my name is Gu Yunchu. Gu Yunchu was very excited when she saw that Li Yuan was the first one to call her and also called her name. Her delicate face seemed to be suddenly dyed crimson. Li Yuan looked at Gu Yunchu, who looked like a little girl, and smiled. Tell me about it. The god of summer flowers, no, Mr. Li, our slogan of Tea Beauty and Moonlight is, Tea Beauty and Moonlight, using the best milk tea to serve you the most beautiful. I have a good memory and you are right. Li Yuan smiled and nodded at Gu Yunchu. He and Zhong Tingyu came up with the slogan together, and both of them thought it was very suitable. Although the slogan is not particularly stunning, elegant, or artistic, it does coincide with the 4 words Tea Beauty and Moonlight. This is also his goal, to make the best tasting milk tea in the world and the most high-end milk tea to serve the most beautiful customers in the world. When it actually opens, it will be coupled with various copywriting, just like the once popular Zhang Dabai. As long as the creativity is good enough, many people will definitely come to check in and pay. In this world, everything is lacking except for food. Whether it is in the entertainment circle, sports circle, music circle, or technology circle, historical and cultural circle, etc., there are widespread fan circles. There is no doubt about the consumption power of the rice circle. After being purified, they are like fruit fans. Even if they do weird things like taking loans or selling kidneys, they still have to support purchases. Low-quality liquor like Zhang Dabai sells so well that someone pays for it. It makes no sense, his milk tea is not selling well. Coupled with the blessing of his reputation, Li Yuan is very confident that this milk tea brand can become an instant success. Li Yuan looked at the newly recruited young clerk in the audience and spoke slowly. It has been nearly a week since everyone came to our company. Although our Chayan USE has just started, I believe that with our joint efforts, Chayan USE will definitely become famous. Just like what our slogan says, use the best milk tea, the most considerate service, the best environment, and serve you the most beautiful person. Without further ado, you should have heard about me from some channels these days. I like to pursue perfection and keep improving. There is no best, only better. Just like you, No matter the figure or appearance, the boys are tall and handsome, and the girls are young and beautiful. Haha, I think you won't object to what I said, right? When the more than 40 young men and women in the audience heard Li Yuan praising them like this, they all laughed at the same time. Li Yuan waited for everyone to stop laughing, and then continued. So, in my company, you may feel that there are so many rules and regulations, and it is not humane, and you must be uncomfortable. You are right to think so. But, I have another characteristic, that is, I will never let those who follow me suffer. As long as you follow my requirements, work hard, and serve customers with your heart, you will get all the treatment I mentioned when recruiting. Not to mention other things, it is definitely the best in the same industry in the entire Magic City and even the whole country. I have only one last sentence to say to everyone. Joining the big family of Chayan USE will be the most correct decision in your life. Thank you everyone, I'm done. When Li Yuan finished speaking and bowed slightly, the entire audience, more than 40 young men and women, immediately burst into warm applause. Li Yuan listened to the warm applause below, smiled slightly, and gestured to Zhong Tingyu. Next, let's welcome the boss lady to arrange the details of tomorrow's opening. Zhong Tingyu walked to Li Yuan's side, looking at the more than 40 young men and women in front of her, and her mood suddenly became nervous. She participated in this milk tea brand from beginning to end, and put a lot of effort into it. From trademark registration, milk tea variety names, decoration of 10 milk tea shops, raw material selection, product production, packaging bags and various cups, and various copywriting, etc., she participated in all of them. It can be said that since the National Day holiday in October, until now in November, except for the time in class and with Li Yuan, all her other time has been invested in this milk tea shop. She attaches more importance to the future of this milk tea shop than Li Yuan. Zhong Tingyu smiled, with a generous and decent look, and her pearly teeth opened slightly, and her gentle and magnetic voice spread throughout the audience. Mr. Li talked about our goals, his expectations for us, everyone, and Chayan USE, and also guaranteed everyone's treatment. Zhong Tingyu paused, and suddenly joked. Everyone should be clear about Mr. Li's identity. In music, online literature, technology websites, etc., Mr. Li has used his outstanding talents to make amazing achievements across the country, and has various titles on the internet. For example, the familiar supreme god of online literature, founder of Zhihu, genius musician, etc. And Mr. Li has also put in a lot of effort in our Chayan USE. I believe that under the leadership of Mr. Li, our Chayan USE will definitely become a benchmark for national milk tea brands like Zhihu, allowing Mr. Li to win another title of Milk Tea Prince. Zhong Tingyu waved his arms and made a cheering gesture. Tell me loudly, do you have confidence? The audience immediately cheered in unison, confident. Zhong Tingyu's eyes showed satisfaction, waited for a while, and continued to speak. Next, let me talk about the arrangements for the opening tomorrow. I hope everyone is ready. First, it is the arrangement of personnel. We now have 42 people serving on the front line. In addition to Tianyu Building and Longjia Building, each with 5 people, other stores have 4 people in each store. Follow the requirements of the previous training, and make good task distribution. Tomorrow, there will be a lot of people and it will be very busy. It may be busy for a long time. But I only have one request, you must serve with a smile, and absolutely do not allow bad attitudes towards customers. We must remember that customers are God, and show our best side to every customer. If there are really customers who speak unpleasantly or deliberately find fault, do not conflict with customers without authorization, but report it in time and let us solve it. Zhong Tingyu said a lot of things, all about the specific matters of tomorrow's opening. For this milk tea shop, although Li Yuan attaches great importance to it, he regards it more as compensation for Zhong Tingyu, and it is also his promise. After Zhong Tingyu finished the arrangement, all the shop assistants returned to their respective stores according to their respective tasks to prepare for the opening tomorrow. Li Yuan, Zhong Tingyu, and Su Yunting were discussing the theme of the milk tea shop opening tomorrow in the store of Longjia building. Zhong Tingyu glanced at Li Yuan with her beautiful eyes, and suggested eagerly. Tomorrow's theme, I think, can be autumn. These few days, after the rain, the weather in the Magic City suddenly became cool, and autumn has really arrived. Li Yuan looked at Zhong Tingyu and said that the theme was autumn, and immediately thought of a marketing plan for milk tea. The first cup of milk tea in autumn. In his previous life, as a boy, he was very disgusted with this way of trying to make men please women. But now, from the perspective of capital, Li Yuan thinks that the idea of the first cup of milk tea in autumn is really very good. Li Yuan spoke out his thoughts, including various marketing plans for the first cup of milk tea in autumn and the copywriting promotion to be carried out next. After Li Yuan finished speaking, he smiled and asked, "What do you think?" Zhong Tingyu blinked her beautiful eyes, looked at Li Yuan, and joked, "Mr. Li is worthy of being Mr. Li, full of routines. However, I think this theme is very good, let's promote it with the theme of the first cup of milk tea in autumn." "Thank you Fen Nian." The boss rewarded 6,500 coins, "Thank you very much." Chapter 248. The white moonlight broke the defense, and the milk tea shop became popular on the first day. After determining the first cup of milk tea in autumn as the theme of tomorrow's opening promotion, Li Yuan, Zhong Tingyu, and Su Yunting discussed tomorrow's promotion plan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 429. In order to make the Chayan Use milk tea a hit, several people have developed a variety of promotional plans on the basis of conventional publicity, including online promotion, QQ Talk forwarding, Weibo forwarding, etc., all of which can enjoy certain discounts. Li Yuan stretched and asked, "Mr. Su, do you have any other suggestions besides the promotional plans just mentioned?" As a senior person engaged in marketing business, Su Yunting naturally has his own opinions in his heart. "Mr. Li, Mr. Zhong, I have an immature suggestion, I would like to propose it for your reference." Li Yuan nodded and motioned her to continue. Su Yunting moistened his throat and carefully spoke out a promotional plan that he had been thinking about in the past few days. "Mr. Li, Mr. Zhong, my idea is based on Mr. Li's previous knock-a-knife model of Zhihu. I think that our Chayan Use can refer to the knock-a-knife model and launch an activity. I call it a card collection activity. Our milk tea cups are of different colors and sizes. When we sell a cup of milk tea, we can issue some number plates. When customers collect different number plates, they can choose to participate in the lottery. The lottery is like the previous knock-a-knife model, which is divided into cash rewards, physical rewards, coupons and other forms." Su Yunting explained the draft in her mind to Li Yuan and Zhong Tingyu in detail. Seeing that Li Yuan seemed to agree and did not show displeasure because of the increase in marketing expenses, she carefully put forward a bold suggestion. "Mr. Li, can I make another suggestion about the reward?" Seeing Su Yunting's cautious look, Li Yuan replied in surprise, "Mr. Su, you say it?" Su Yunting bravely said, "Mr. Li, it's like this, you are very famous now, especially in the music circle, there are many fans who admire you and regard you as an idol. I think if you add a lottery event, the winners can get your autographed book, group photo, meet and greet, etc., it will surely attract a large number of fans to participate." When Su Yunting was halfway through, Li Yuan understood what she wanted to say. Nothing more than continuing to use his human signboard to advertise and attract customers. The corners of his mouth twitched. "Well, Other companies all look for those stars to endorse, but he just skipped the step. I feed myself a bag of salt. Li Yuan couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Su Yunting's idea is actually very normal. As a manager in charge of sales, she naturally wants to make Cha Yan Usi a hit. Zhong Tingyu, who was standing by, listened to Su Yunting's suggestion and looked at Li Yuan deeply with a smile. This man, with his own charm, always attracts the attention of many girls. She has become accustomed to it now. Although she was a little unhappy, she also understood that Su Yunting's suggestion was actually very feasible. Once it was exposed, it would definitely attract many female fans. In the past few days, at Jay Chu's concert and Bai Wixi's birthday party, Li Yuan's songs Just Once and The Rest of My Life were also on the hot search of major music websites, ranking very high. On music websites such as QQ Music and Qzhou Music, several songs sung by Li Yuan are all in very high positions. His identity as a musical genius has long been recognized by all parties. In various posts, people are calling for Li Yuan to hold a concert and release a music album. After Su Yunting finished speaking, he waited anxiously for Li Yuan's answer. Seeing this, Li Yuan smiled and said, "Well, this idea is also okay. I agree. You can go ahead and do it." "Thank you for your support, Mr. Li." Su Yunting was overjoyed and relieved. She took a huge risk by proposing this whimsical suggestion. If she just took office and made the boss unhappy because of this kind of thing, it would be a big loss. These days of communication and participation in various activities of the Cha Yan Usi milk tea shop, she can feel the support of Li Yuan for this milk tea brand. He really wants to create a first-class milk tea brand in the country. After determining the promotion plan for tomorrow, Li Yuan took Zhong Tingyu to the other 9 stores and logistics storage warehouses to carefully check to ensure that there is no problem. On the way back to school, Zhong Tingyu asked Li Yuan a question. "Senior, the milk tea shop will open tomorrow. Do you want to invite Wei 11, Ji Jin and others to visit?" Li Yuan was stunned and didn't quite understand what Zhong Tingyu meant. Seeing Li Yuan's expression, Zhong Tingyu blinked and explained with a smile, "Senior, I think it would be better to tell Wixi in advance." Li Yuan realized what Zhong Tingyu meant. "Are you afraid that they will be jealous?" Zhong Tingyu nodded, that's what she meant. These days, she and Bai Wixi have been getting along well, and she knows that this is actually a very kind and gentle girl. Perhaps because of what happened that night, she felt that if Bai Wixi knew about this after the opening, she would definitely be very sad. The relationship between the two people, which had finally eased, would fall into a deadlock again. She didn't want to see this situation. Li Yuan thought about it. He didn't plan to tell Xia's Haijin and Bai Wixi about this milk tea shop. It was opened specifically for Zhong Tingyu, and even the name was named after Zhong Tingyu. However, Zhong Tingyu's worries are not unreasonable. If Bai Wixi knew that he had first opened a technology company without telling her and created Zhihu, and now he and Zhong Tingyu had opened a milk tea shop without telling her. You don't need to think about how Bai Wixi would feel. If she didn't break down and cry on the spot, she would be considered emotionally stable. "Why didn't you tell me anything when I was here first?" Li Yuan replied, "Well, I will ask Haijin for his opinion. When you return to the dormitory, tell Xiao Bai about it." Zhong Tingyu nodded, thinking about how to tell Bai Wixi about this. After sending Zhong Tingyu back to school, Li Yuan still had half a day of classes in the afternoon. During the break, Li Yuan told Xia's Haijin about the situation and asked if she was willing to go together. Xia's Haijin was normal when she heard that Li Yuan had other businesses outside, and she didn't look very surprised. She said with a somewhat tangled look, "Li Yuan, there are professional classes tomorrow. Is it appropriate for me to go?" From childhood to adulthood, except for a few times of sick leave, she has never skipped classes, even in college. Li Yuan smiled and touched her head, "You can go or not, it depends on your opinion. The opening of the milk tea shop is indeed not a big deal. She and Zhong Tingyu don't have much contact, so it doesn't matter whether you go or not. Xia's Haijin's hesitant look made Li Yuan understand. Okay, you can go to class at school with peace of mind. Xia's Haijin stretched out her little hand and held Li Yuan. Will you be angry? Li Yuan laughed dumbly. Little fool, why are you angry? Oh, I'm glad you're not angry. Xia's Haijin still looked well behaved. On the other side, when Zhong Tingyu told Bai Wuxi about the opening of the milk tea shop tomorrow, Bai Wuxi's expression was very wonderful, with an expression of disbelief, and her voice was a little sharper, with a hint of trembling. Did you open this Jiayan Use milk tea shop with him? Listening to Bai Wuxi's question, Zhong Tingyu nodded her chin and explained. Wuxi, I used to like milk tea, so I told him about my idea, and he supported me, so I opened a milk tea shop. These days, I'm also busy with the milk tea shop. Bai Wuxi listened to Zhong Tingyu's explanation, and tears seemed to open the floodgates, and she dripped down in a moment of grievance. Seeing Bai Wuxi suddenly cry, Zhong Tingyu was a little confused. Why did she react so much? She hurried forward to comfort Bai Wuxi. Wuxi, don't cry, I came here specifically to tell you, let's go to the milk tea shop opening ceremony together tomorrow. Listening to Zhong Tingyu's comfort, Bai Wuxi cried even harder. The feeling of grievance in her heart has reached its peak. She couldn't understand why Li Yuan treated her so differently, never telling her anything, and always being the last to know. She was the last to know that he was writing a novel after the college entrance examination. He opened a technology company in Longjiu building and developed Zhihu.com, and she was the last to know. He went to buy a villa with Zhong Tingyu, and she was the last to know. He opened a milk tea shop without knowing it, and she was the last to know. Why? Why do you treat me like this? I was here first, and I have known him for more than 3 years. Bai Wuxi broke down, staring at Zhong Tingyu with tears in her eyes, squatting on the ground with grievance, hugging her knees, and crying bitterly. Zhong Tingyu stood there awkwardly, and seeing Bai Wuxi squatting on the ground crying, she could only squat down with him, gently patting Bai Wuxi's shoulder to comfort him. Wuxi, I'm sorry, I just wanted to invite you to join. Bai Wuxi's shoulders shook helplessly, and she sobbed softly. Zhong Tingyu saw Bai Wuxi crying all the time and didn't know what to do. If it was because of something else, she would know how to comfort her. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 430. But the current situation is due to my own reasons. Bai Wuxi squatted on the ground and cried for a long time before he slowly stopped sobbing, raised his head, stared at Zhong Tingyu in front of him with red eyes, and asked in a hoarse voice. How many other things are you hiding from me? Listening to Bai Wuxi's question full of reluctance and doubt, Zhong Tingyu sighed helplessly. Wuxi, you shouldn't ask me this question, because I know a lot of things and don't understand them. If you want to know, just ask him directly. He will definitely tell you. Zhong Tingyu was also a little disappointed. She originally thought that if she told Bai Wuxi in advance, the situation would be better and the relationship between the two could be eased. She didn't have to say it in advance. When the news opens tomorrow and overwhelming news comes out, Bai Wuxi will be even more sad if she finds out about it at that time. Bai Wuxi shed tears and stared at Zhong Tingyu with red eyes, falling into silence. She also knew in her heart that she shouldn't blame Zhong Tingyu, because the other party and herself were essentially love rivals, and she had no obligation to tell the news in advance. These days, she can also feel the kindness released by Zhong Tingyu towards her. Bai Wuxi looked deeply at Zhong Tingyu and said hoarsely, "Thank you, Tingyu." Zhong Tingyu listened to Bai Wuxi's thanks, reached out and patted her shoulder, and sincerely comforted, "Wuxi, actually, I think it's good for you and Li Yuan to talk about it seriously. In his heart, the location is very important. I told him the story he told before. I think it may be a knot in his heart. Baiwixi felt mixed emotions in her heart when she listened to what Zhong Tingyu said. Tingyu, I understand that there is a knot in his heart. However, I don't know how to resolve this knot in his heart. Tingyu, can you teach me? Zhong Tingyu shook her head gently. Wixi, I don't know what to do, so you should ask him yourself. Oh, Baiwixi sighed in her heart. According to what Li Yuan said, she abandoned him in her previous life. In this life, she can only try her best to be good to him. But, I've done everything I can do, even that thing, for you. What else can I do? Zhong Tingyu asked again, Wei 11, will you go with us tomorrow? Baiwixi nodded, go. In the afternoon of that day, the news about the opening of Tea Beauty and Moonlight tomorrow was publicized through various methods such as Zhihu, QQ Book Club, and leaflet distribution. When Li Yuan announced the news in the fan group, various groups immediately exploded, and the fans hidden in them immediately began to discuss it lively. Wow, the summer flower god shows up again tomorrow. The Tea Beauty and Moonlight milk tea shop will open in Xiahua Kai. Can you win a chance to meet Xiahua's male idol through a lottery? Sisters, raise your hands if you are ready to go to the scene as the Xiahua fan support group. We must call for the Xiahua male god. Hee, I have long wanted to hear Xiahua's concert. Sisters, work hard and try to win more big prizes so that Xiahua can give us a concert. Yes, please forward this message quickly, so that Xiahua fans across the country can see it, and work together to let the Xiahua male god give us a concert. Li Yuan took a dive and read the various group messages for a while. At first, they were just talking about the Chayan USA milk tea shop. After a while, the picture became distorted, and everyone began to discuss how to let him hold a concert. Li Yuan was in a cold sweat. He was proud of having so many loyal fans, but also felt a little worried. I just don't know if the mobility of these female fans is as exaggerated as what I've seen in previous lives. Li Yuan muttered to himself, maid, I was originally going to be a powerful business boss, but why do I look more and more like an idol? The next day, when Li Yuan drove Zhong Tingyu and Baiwixi to the main store of Longjia building, he was immediately stunned by the scene in front of him. A long queue had already formed in front of the Tea Beauty and Moonlight store in Longjia building, and it was surrounded by people, almost all of whom were young ladies dressed in different styles. They were holding a leaflet of Tea Beauty and Moonlight in their hands, which introduced various milk teas and activities. Baiwixi and Zhong Tingyu followed Li Yuan on the left and right, and were shocked when they saw the scene in front of them. Zhong Tingyu looked weird and joked, Mr. Li, I can guarantee that these girls are definitely here for you. Li Yuan smiled. He didn't need to think about it to know that these people in line must be his fans, or book fans, or song fans. Otherwise, there would be no way that a new milk tea shop would have so many people so early in the morning. Q. He felt a little bit of the madness of the groupies. No wonder, the concert tickets of those singers in the previous life, even if they cost several thousand yuan each, were still snatched up in minutes. The spending power of fans is terrible. When many female fans lined up saw Li Yuan appear with their own eyes, the atmosphere at the scene instantly boiled. They were all shouting at Li Yuan crazily. Their fiery eyes made Li Yuan feel a chill down his back. When the time came to 10 o'clock in the morning, the Chayan USA milk tea shop officially opened for business. Because they are using the latest equipment, they can order food and print on the computer. Except that they cannot use WeChat payment and Alipay as they did later, everything else is not much different from the future. When fans entered the store and waited, they praised the store decoration layout, various youth literature copywriting, and exquisite milk tea packaging. Tisk, it is indeed a shop opened by Xiahua. Just looking at the decoration, it feels very classy. This should be the largest and most upscale milk tea shop in our entire Magic City, right? Hey, Zyok, try this cup of Yangtze Manitou, it tastes really delicious. I knew that the product produced by Zaiwa Male God must be a high quality product. Hee, I bought 7 cups at once, collected 7 cards, and can participate in the lottery, hoping to get the opportunity to have a fan meeting with the Summer Flower Male God. Only 7, there is only one chance to draw the lottery. I am going to buy one for everyone in our class, but I don't believe it, I can't draw the prize. Xiaohuanan God's milk tea shop is good in everything, but there are too many people. I had to wait in line for a long time. I waited in line for an hour before I got there. I bought 10 cups of milk tea at once and brought it back to our roommates, let them drink it hard for me. Bai Wixi sat next to Li Yuan and asked in surprise, "Brother, are these people in line all your fans?" Zhong Tingyu added sourly, "That's for sure. It can't be for the two of us. You see, more than 90% of the people who come are girls or girls' boyfriends." Li Yuan coughed and said, "This is a special propaganda method. Don't get me wrong, you too." Zhong Tingyu pursed her lips and snickered, "Hee, senior, we didn't say anything, why do we feel you are a little guilty?" As time passed, Li Yuan, Zhong Tingyu, and Bai Wixi listened to the sales data reported by Su Yunting every 2 hours. "Mr. Li, the sales data for the first 6 hours have been calculated. A total of 32,100 cups were sold in 10 stores, with sales reaching 456,400 yuan. Chapter 249 Milk Tea Shop Expansion Plan, the beautiful monitor comes to beg for help." Hearing Su Yunting happily report on the sales of milk tea, Li Yuan frowned and did not reply. Zhong Tingyu saw Li Yuan frowning and said nothing, thinking that he was not satisfied with the sales data, and asked in surprise, "Senior, this sales data is already very good. In 6 hours, sales reached 450,000. In her opinion, this figure was beyond imagination. According to this trend, total sales today will reach 1 million, which is almost no difficulty. According to her previous market research, the peak sales period for milk tea shops is after 5 p.m. and before 9 p.m., accounting for more than 80% of total sales." Bai Wixi was very shocked when she listened to the sales data reported by Su Yunting. Her bright eyes stared at Li Yuan's cheek, and the feeling of admiration in her heart became a little thicker. "This is my man." Seeing the 3 women staring at him in confusion, Li Yuan smiled and shook his head, "I don't think this data is bad, but I think this data is too good, a little beyond imagination. 32,000 cups, converted to an average, each store sells nearly 10 cups every minute. Don't you think this figure is too exaggerated?" Hearing Li Yuan's calculation, Zhong Tingyu and Bai Wixi looked at each other and understood what the problem was. It is impossible for a milk tea shop to handle such a high volume. Even if one person collects the money and 3 people make milk tea, they can make 5 cups in 1 minute, which is already very fast. Su Yunting saw that Li Yuan knew something was wrong as soon as he heard the sales data, and secretly sighed in his heart. He was indeed a genius who had achieved such a great reputation at the age of 19. She laughed and explained why. "Mr. Li, Mr. Zhong, Mr. Bai, I know the reason. The situation is like this. Because Mr. Li has attracted a lot of attention, those who come to line up now are basically Mr. Li's female fans. Many of them buy milk tea. We can buy dozens of cups, but instead of making fresh milk tea, we use the method of picking up coupons. As long as the card can participate in the lottery, the sales data are very high." Listening to Su Yunting's explanation, Li Yuan instantly understood that this was the reason. Just like the recharge cards prepared for the opening of some new stores, there are big opening rewards. It's not like he hasn't thought of this recharge card activity before. First, it takes a certain amount of time to make a special recharge card. Second, the milk tea is small after all. Even if he takes the most high-end route, the average price of each cup of milk tea is only 15 yuan. About This price was already very high at the price and consumption level in 2008. This is not because he wants to gain fans. In fact, all the raw materials used in Cheyenne USE are of very high quality. All I can say is, you get what you pay for. If you want to go the high-end brand route, the price cannot be low. Otherwise, if you want to improve it, the effort required will be 100 times greater. Some people, for the sake of so-called face and brand, will not buy the cheap ones. Including himself, the Armani suit he is wearing is worth tens of thousands. In terms of materials and labor alone, is it really worth that much? It's just about pursuing the added value of the brand. This is just the beginning. There will be more fans coming to buy milk tea, and the number of people who come to buy milk tea may not be that large. Li Yuan reminded again, inform all stores to provide good service and not to reduce service quality because there are too many customers. Even if you don't make much money in the early stage, your reputation and brand must be built up. Su Yunting nodded quickly, Mr. Li, don't worry, I understand. Li Yuan looked at Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu and said with a smile, Xiao Bai, Xiao Yu, let's go to a few other stores and say hello to them all. Okay.